Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Lodgify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.
Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. Good morning, gang.
Good morning.
Sarah, look, here we are. How lucky are we? We've got Boris with us again.
I was about to say, yeah, I think our listeners will notice that we have a third voice on today, which is exciting. Welcome back, Boris.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here, just like the first time around. So I guess I did a fairly decent job if you're inviting me again. So thanks for that.
Boris, you're always welcome, my friend. We always want to get you on the show. For any of our audience that missed your first show, please give us a little bit of an overview of who you are and what you do in the industry.
Sure thing. So I was a property manager for 7 years, scaled a pretty large operation in Bulgaria and Romania, sold it last year, and I've been working on different solutions for property managers, how to reduce their dependence on platforms like Airbnb, Booking.com. We learned a lot about Airbnb today, I think. So we have transitioned a couple of times. Now we're becoming a AI company. No shock there. Every company, every startup is becoming like a little bit of an AI startup. We're a few weeks away from releasing our newest product, which is going to be a killer, I think. So, super excited, working a lot these days, on that product, and, happy to talk to you about it once we launch.
Amazing. Okay, yeah. So we're going to get the scoop, is what you're saying. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Boris, the first time we had you on, you did amazingly well because you had a 3-week-old baby. I seem to remember.
Yeah.
You must be sleeping now. You're sleeping a bit more.
Yeah, we're sleeping. He sleeps through the night, which is amazing, especially for his mom, because I sometimes go in the other bedroom, but I have a lot of work on the next day. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. I just couldn't do it in the first month, but now he sleeps through the night. He's a really good boy so far, but let's see.
Great. Good for you. I remember those days of being able to go into the other room. Of course, now if I try and go into another room, there's another child in the other room. So it's just that you're just moving the problem. You're not solving it. So I remember good times, Boris, good times. Nice. Okay, great. And Sarah, my friend, what have you been up to? Sun's shining. Sun's out in Barcelona surely now, right?
Sun is out in Barcelona. Finally, I'm starting to get a bit of a tan, which is great. It was one of my really good friends. It was her birthday. Well, it's actually her birthday today. But she decided to celebrate by renting out a massive masia, which is like a Catalan farmhouse, about an hour outside of Barcelona. It was fabulous, and there was like 30 people there. And so we all went up on like Friday afternoon, evening. And then Saturday hung out. We did like these Olympic games, which was like fake Olympics for people who are not athletic at all. So like egg on spoon, 3-legged race. There was one where like you sit in a line and you're all blindfolded and the person in front has a bucket and you have to put the bucket on your head and like pass back water into somebody else's bucket. But of course you can't see, so you just get wet. And then we did like a wine tasting, which actually... it was fabulous. And then a barbecue, and then just, one of our friends is a DJ too. And so we had, DJ, got to be little big groupies. It was fabulous. And then yesterday just kind of hung out by the pool and chilled and tended to our hangovers. So it was wonderful.
I love that culture of going out. I think that's more prominent in Barcelona than maybe it is in the UK. We need to do it more in the UK, right? Get out of the city just for a night or two. But like it's big, isn't it, in Barcelona? You called it something. What did you say the type of accommodation it was?
So the type of accommodation is a masia, which is basically like, I don't know, old rich Catalan people that have like inherited these massive mansions. I mean, there was 17 bathrooms, 15 bedrooms. Every bedroom had its own like they had basically renovated the inside. But the outside and all the courtyards and stuff were still the same. So like when you go into these things, it's almost like, I don't know, I don't, obviously it wasn't around then, but I feel like it's one of those things where you'd be like, oh, I'm going into court, but it's not court. It's like a mini court, you know? Like with it, I mean, there was like stations where like everybody had their own like water spigot and had the beautiful mosaic tiles and stuff, but somehow now they're inside. It was a labyrinth. Honestly, I tried to find my bedroom like 5 times one night when I was like, well, which was it up and then down, and then it had those little tiny doors because I guess people didn't need to not stoop back then, or they were really short. One of the two. I don't know.
Wow.
And the night you couldn't find your bedroom, was that after the wine tasting, by any chance?
No, it was actually the first night before we even started drinking. I was like, I'm going to do this now that I'm sober so that I know how to get back to my room later in the night. And it was still a disaster. So, no, somehow drunkenly I got there. I don't know how, but I made it.
Homing pigeon instincts when you've had a wine. I get that.
I did find like a Hansel and Gretel trail of like, I had like taken off a sock and I'm going to take off like my jacket. And I had, there's like a trail leading to my bedroom. So that was actually great. Easy to find.
Did you rent it out? The entire place is like a rental.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And they do like weddings, or you can just rent it out with a group of friends. And honestly, like, it wasn't really expensive at all. Like it would have cost you less than going away to a nice hotel for the weekend, you know?
What's the cleaning fee on that? What was the cleaning fee? I'm super curious to find out. 17 better?
I'm pretty sure it was included in whatever we paid, which actually was not ridiculous. I think it worked out to be like between all of us, like less than 100 euros total for the weekend, which is insane. And we did most of the cleanup. I think that's the beautiful thing about having 30 people. It's like literally everybody grabbed something. And because most of the stuff we did outside, it was just take a garden hose and hose everything down. Like, totally fine.
Is this a thing that people do in Bulgaria? Are people good at getting out of the city and spending weekends away?
Oh yeah, definitely. We used to do this a lot with my friends before we all got babies to take care of. We used to rent these houses, go there for a couple of days. We didn't do the bucket thing challenge, but we would, play cards, drink, have fun. Yeah, that's quite common. A lot of people do it.
Love it. All right, gang, let's get into it. The news has been absolutely flooded this week with Airbnb. And it's kind of how I feel about it. I mean, there's so many different ways to start, and someone will give an overview and explain what's going on. But I'll just start by saying Airbnb can write about anything controversial, exciting, and it gets the whole industry talking. And I think we probably have to start by saying, well done to Airbnb for getting themselves in this position where, they decide to change something or evolve something and it gets everybody talking, because my LinkedIn has been about nothing else all week. When I look at all the publications we use, this is front and center. And I think that is a good starting place, because a lot of what you read online is about Airbnb's power and control in the industry. And it's unprecedented, really, to have such a great market share and own so much of the distribution that they are able to make changes that will be felt globally. So I think that is the place to start. Well, look, let's look at the detail. I don't know who wants to start us off. Sarah, do you want to give a bit of an overview of what's changed? Then we can kind of talk it through.
Yeah, sure. So a couple of main things in this summer release. One that I actually am excited about, to be honest, is Airbnb services. I think this is something that we talk about a lot, and it makes sense. So especially like a place like this place I went to this weekend. Great. I would love to rent a massive castle and farmhouse and not have to do the barbecue, actually. Would have been nice to have the option to have at least one of the evenings, like a chef come in and prepare a nice meal and everybody just kind of relax. So this is one of the things that I really liked. And I think it makes sense. It makes sense alongside the booking, especially for the types of properties that Airbnb really is best at. And it's a great way for them to make extra money. So this is kind of one of the first ones. And then the other two that they focused on was experiences, because this is new, guys, in case you haven't heard. Not.
Oh, wow.
Experiences. It's happening again. And also about the app. Everybody's on about their app. Whatever. Let's see. Essentially, the relaunch of the app is to make it easier for them to sell you more things. So there's the summary. My cynical summary.
Love it. I expected nothing else. I didn't want a positive, glowing one. I wanted a Sarah summary of the situation. Boris, what do you think, buddy?
Well, I would be on the very positive side, but I'm wearing my hat as a person who, like, for example, would invest in Airbnb or is a shareholder of Airbnb. If I'm a shareholder of Airbnb and I hear this summer release, I'll be thrilled. Why? Because they, as you said, they own the entire space. Everybody was talking about Airbnb. They own the narrative, and they have this huge customer base. They have this brand that's recognized globally, and now they've just figured out a way. Let's see if it works out. But I think they've figured out a way to monetize the same customer base over and over again in completely different ways. So they are going the Amazon way, started out with vacation rentals. Amazon started with books, and then they expand into completely different verticals, monetizing the exact same customer base. So for me, it's a brilliant move. I've been waiting for Airbnb to do something that is actually bold, to go back a little bit to their startup nature and disrupt and innovate. So they've done exactly that. Well, apart from the experiences side, because the experiences is like relaunching for the, I don't know which time. Hopefully this time they're going to get it right. But for the services part, I think it's something really interesting. And again, it's great for Airbnb. I don't know if it's great for hosts. I actually don't see, as of now, any silver linings there, because the hosts are going to take up a lot of risk. You have all these random people, verified, but still people that you don't know coming into your rental. And imagine it's a huge castle with 17 bathrooms and all that, and they accidentally start a fire. Well, who's responsible for that? I don't know if that was made clear during the announcement, because you have the air cover, but you probably have some other insurance there. Would that cover it if you have a chef who accidentally burns the entire plate because they don't know, they're not used to the kitchen? I don't know. What do you think, guys?
I'll jump in on the insurance point just because I have some experience in that field. So I think I can probably give some. I agree. I think it's going to make insurers very nervous because they want to know up front. And again, I'm trying to think about like a more traditional insurance company where a host has gone and bought a policy. Obviously, at Truvi, we're screening guests ahead of time, right? And we're providing a risk management platform which is more intuitive than, say, a traditional insurance policy where you don't. They want to know catch or what type of activity is going to happen in this rental, and then they want to forget about it. They don't want to have to they don't want to have to look at it on a usage basis, right? So if that's completely changed the game, and hypothetically, it could mean that somebody's premium goes up because you now have to say, well, what might happen is a chef might come into the property and they start cooking for the first time, and they leave the gas on, or they forget to put a cloth down and the pan burns through the wooden surface, and it turns out it's a designer kitchen and it's €2,000 or it's €20,000 because it's a fire. Traditional insurers hate that. Absolutely hate that. Anyone who's gone out and got a traditional insurance policy on top of what air cover provides, which is just a protection against damage, I think that there are going to be questions to ask, and I think we have to try and unravel that, because will Airbnb say, oh, it's okay, we're extending what air cover provides because they're a client of ours, they're a partner of ours, so that they de facto are a guest. But then you have the point on liability, which is scarier, which is that the chef falls down the stairs while working in your property. And that is the one that insurers will particularly find terrifying. And it maybe comes back to the point of the red line I saw for a lot of people online doesn't mean this will happen, by the way. We're in the early stages of this, so we're just speculating, of course. But the red line I saw from lots of people was that it didn't seem that that Airbnb would inform you when a service or an experience had been chosen in your property. So you could have a fire dancer coming in and juggling fire in your living room without ever knowing it's taken place. Now, caveat, I don't know that for sure. I'm just going on what the chatter was online at the time. But I think that is especially worrying for hosts, because it's like owning the hotel room but not having a clue what's going on in the lobby. And that, I don't know, Sarah.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Although I do think it's something that isn't necessarily new. Why do I say that? I have friends who, gosh, like 7 years ago, they're from the US. They were looking at getting married in California, and it was obviously disgustingly expensive. And they were like, well, forget this. We don't even like people. Let's just go to Italy. And so she literally found this Airbnb in the middle of Tuscany that was beautiful. And it was kind of this sort of vibe, right? And there were, I don't know, 10 or 12 bedrooms, something like that. And so it was a limited amount of space. Everybody who was at the wedding cared enough to either fly from the States or like happened to live in Europe already or whatever. And so it was a really small, intimate thing. And actually the owners of the property, as part of the description of the Airbnb, it was like, hey, by the way, like we do weddings. So all they had to do was rent the property and then included in the price. The people organized the wedding. So they were like, it was the host themselves, that it was their house. They were the caterers. They did this really cool thing for like the rehearsal dinner where they were just popping pizzas in the oven with any kind of toppings you wanted. One of those like wood burning pizza ovens. It was really cool. And then they catered the whole dinner and everything else. So I think it's not necessarily new, but whenever there's external people coming in and it's not you doing it at your property, you lose the control. And I think that's, for me, especially hosts that have like a larger property, I think there's a massive opportunity for them to take control of this and be the ones that are offering those experiences. But if it's always going to be external people, I think that's where it gets a little bit hairy, and also it gets less interesting for hosts. Like, do they have the option to say, no, actually, I don't want to offer these services at my property? Or is Airbnb going to say, no, you're listed on Airbnb, you have to offer these things because they're available in your area? I don't know.
Oh, apparently there is a way to opt out, but I've heard rumors that Airbnb's algorithm is going to rank you down if you opt out of that. But the question I would have here is, okay, let's say services you accepted as a host, but still, isn't there a premium you're supposed to receive for making your property available for these people or service providers to provide the service at the property? It's, after all, your property. When we were property managers, when I was a property manager, we would shoot a lot of reality shows in some of the properties. And every single type, or even commercials, a lot of TV commercials were shot in different, even smaller properties. Depends on, how they're designed and whatever the people shooting the commercial need. So every single time we would charge a premium, and that premium was quite significant. It was sometimes 3 times the nightly rate, just because so many people are going to enter the property. So that's going to disturb the whole building if it's an apartment. And they're going to move around the furniture for sure. They're doing shooting. They need these huge cameras that roll on the floor so they could damage stuff. So we would always ask for a very high deposit, and the nightly rate was completely different. So my question here is, how can hosts benefit from that if they don't even know that it's happening at their property? It's I think it would be fair for Airbnb to share part of the profits that they're earning, to share that host. Don't you think so? I mean, it's only fair.
I do. Yeah, I do. I'm glad you've taken the conversation this way, Boris, because there's a couple of different things we also need to discuss. I'd also want to make sure we have time to discuss whether we think it'll even work as a business line for them. But it isn't new. As Sarah said, this is nothing new. This is about monetizing your guest in stay. That's been the talk of the industry conferences for probably 2 years now. What are you doing to upsell to your guests? And there's a lot of companies that specialize in upsells. I won't mention one over the other because I'll forget to mention some, but you can do it directly through your PMS, or you can do it through a specified guest portal or guidebooks. There's opportunities to upsell. And those businesses start with the premise that in order to get the host interested, they have to give them revenue, because they understand that they're not in control of that situation. They are coming to the host to say, we want access to your guest, but really it's your guest that we're helping you monetize with this bucket list of things that they can do, or these things that they can purchase. So the starting premise is you monetize it. In-stay revenue is significant for these property managers, because it moves you away from being a property manager to being a hospitality provider. And so the professional or the larger property managers, or multiple people who manage a few but go to all the conferences, they've been wise to this for about 12 months, right? Maybe 18 months. But there's 80% of people that, or maybe even more than that, who've never been to a short-term rental conference and just have one property, and they've never even thought about that because they're mostly just focused on Airbnb being their main provider. So potentially they don't see that as a loss of control. They just see it as a new cool feature that Airbnb provides. So with that in mind, I think it would be really, really prudent for Airbnb to say from the get-go, don't worry, you're going to monetize this, because then it just cuts out that conversation. Whereas you might be a short-term rental host that only lists on Airbnb that doesn't like this. And then before you know it, you start looking over the fence to go, well, hold on a minute, I can use this upsell company or that upsell company, and I can benefit from the monetization of my guest. And again, I'll go back to the hotel example. So I've mentioned it a few times on the pod, but I'll mention it again. Boris, I might not have told you, but we were at One Fine Stay, we were bought by the Accor Hotel Group, right? And that I watched Accor do this from the inside of the tent for the next 12, 18 months that I was in the building. I watched them buy a lifestyle app, put it together with the One Fine Stay offering, with this idea that they wanted to create a concierge service. Why? Because they were a hotel and they understood that concierge was what you needed to be providing. Getting someone through the door was just the start. How you then monetize the restaurant, the bar, the services, the spa, the treatments, everything. That's really where you make your dollar, because you've got them on. You've got them on already. It's like Disney Cruises buying an island so that when you get off the cruise, you're still on their property. Like, it's just smart business, isn't it? So again, kudos to Airbnb. It's not surprising when you see it in those terms, but is it fair that as the provider of the hotel room in this analogy, as to repeat myself, you don't get to benefit from what's going on in the lobby? And don't know, it doesn't feel right. But again, perhaps the Airbnb's bet is that they get away with it because of that 80% cohort that are not on LinkedIn. They're not even on Instagram talking about hosting. They just provide their space, and it's a kind of turnkey and forget about it situation. I've said a lot there. Sorry.
This is just the same debate as to who owns the guest. And I think it's something that Airbnb and their messaging with host has not gotten right. Because I think every host feels, this is my property. I'm the one who's on the ground. I'm the one putting in the blood, sweat, and tears to make sure that this is not only a good property, but the overall experience is good. There's a lot of work that goes in behind that. And I don't know, if I'm a host, I'm kind of feeling like Airbnb is once again just one step closer to stealing my guest. And I think that is the biggest perception issue that we're going to have, that if Airbnb continues down this route, it's definitely a grab for more and more control of the guest, and giving less of that to the host outside of the Airbnb platform, which I think it's a risk, and it could turn a lot of people off.
Yeah, but they also, I definitely agree with that. And to make it even more so that the guest remains within the Airbnb ecosystem, there's a part of the release that doesn't really get mentioned often, but they're moving towards a social networking experience. So apparently right now, when you do an experience with somebody else, you're able to connect with that person. You don't know each other, but you share this moment together. So you're able to connect with them and start chatting. So that's the first step, I suppose, to Airbnb moving more into the territory of social networks all around travel and experiences and lifestyle, even not that much travel, like a lifestyle platform where you can even meet people that you've already met in person. Brian Chesky has said a lot. He's been talking a lot about loneliness, and that how loneliness is a problem, especially in younger generations. So that's his first step of trying to solve that problem, or attempt at solving the problem, by moving into the social networking territory. And if that happens, then we're completely losing, as property managers and hosts, we're completely losing any grasp on the guests. That they're gone forever.
I like the social messaging, social networking part. I think it's really smart for the experiences. I think it's super smart. Or having that.
Is it going to work? Or are people just going to like get each other's Instagrams or WhatsApp? Like, I don't know. I don't see myself like chatting with randos but I'm a bit of an old school person.
I'm a little bit old school as well in that respect. Maybe not me, but maybe younger generation. Do you know what? I don't know. I think I want to ask that question more broadly. Will it work? So I'll be the first to answer quickly. I think that in 12 months' time, we're going to be sat looking at Airbnb's results, still talking about bookings, listing growth, and RevPAR and things of that nature, we're not really going to be seeing a significant contribution coming from experiences and coming from services. So I call me a cynic. And again, I'd love to be proven wrong because it'd be very, very exciting for the industry. But I don't see how Airbnb can or will transition from being an app you open to get the Wi-Fi details, find out whether you need to take the bins out, get the door code, all the way into being an app that you use once, twice a week for your gym or your personal trainer or your private chef when you're, meeting your friends and you're having your friends over for dinner. So I don't see, I might be wrong, of course, but I don't see that the move into that lifestyle app. And I think it's about user behavior. And I think people are so used to that when they're not on vacation, they're so used to Googling things, Google Maps, Google Chrome. They're using Gemini now. They're starting to use ChatGPT. I think it's very hard to, when they come into that window, get them to come and book the services or the experiences in your app. If they can master it, wow, like fantastic. And they're onto an absolute winner, aren't they? They're onto a gold mine. But I'm cynical that they'll actually be able to pull it off.
Yeah.
Sarah, you want to do your prediction?
Yeah. I mean, experiences, well, I don't know. What's it like? Fifth time's a charm, maybe. Let's see. I'm rooting for them. At least it makes sense to me, right? Like this makes sense. The services make sense. It's not as out there as some of the other things that they've suggested. I think the risk is potentially losing hosts. And I think also, like, am I going to book that service on Airbnb? Or as Leo said, am I just going to Google like in-home massage therapist that will come to the property? And I also think that it's quite niche. So it depends on the property that you're renting. When I think of an Airbnb, in most cases, it's like, okay, I'm looking for either an incredible location, like where I was this weekend, or I'm looking for something relatively cheap that kind of meets my needs, where it's like close, or I can live like a local, or it's a different kind of vibe, right? So if you're going the route I went this weekend, great, sure, I might add some services or some kind of experience. But for like the lower level, I feel like it's such a sub-segment of the overall properties they offer on their site that would actually be interested in, especially the services bit, right? Like it's just quite bougie for me. And so it's it's a sub-segment of their already, like the goal is to make it bigger, not smaller. And I feel like they're going after a really specific type of guest. And I just don't know if it reaches enough of their guest pool to be significant to tip the needle.
If you're a castle in Scotland, for example, I think you would use it. But if you're in a city centre flat in Edinburgh for the festival for 2 nights, you're not using it. I just think what I instantly think. Sorry, and then Boris, I will let you give your view. But what I instantly think when I'm on some curated experiences platform is I'm overpaying. I'm overpaying. And I'm not seeing the whole market. Like, I just want to go to the place where everything is. I want to be able to look at everything so that I can find. I'm quite a cheapskate, but I'm like, I don't want to have that. Whereas I guess if I am out in that more kind of what experiential travel that you've just talked about, Sarah, out with your friends in that weekend, or up in a castle in Scotland, to give that example, or an igloo in the North Pole, I'm interested to see what are the curated experiences, because I am already kind of out of the city. So I agree. I don't think there'll be mass adoption because most of their properties are not that type of property. Boris,
so
what
would
do
you book Airbnb, or would you just be like, oh, that's a great idea, I'm going to shop around? Because that's exactly what I would do.
Probably, yeah.
Like, I'm not going to pay the idiot tax. That's probably 20 to 30% more. Why would I do that? I don't know. I'm skeptical. Boris, bring us home. What do you think?
Actually, I have a completely different view. So I think what Airbnb is going to do, they're going to double down on services. Experiences is meh. I mean, it's going to be there. We're going to book it when they're somewhere way outside their comfort zone of booking something directly. But it's not going to be a huge thing, just like the last 3 or 4 times. It wasn't a huge thing. But services, there is a nuance there. Services you can book on Airbnb at your own home. You don't have to be traveling in order to book a service. Now, it's going to take a little bit of time for the customer's mindset to shift, and so that the customer, starts not just Googling, but going on Airbnb and ordering service from there because it's verified and because, it's easily accessible, it has reviews, etc., etc. So I think they're going to double down on that for the sole purpose that in a few years' time, I think all marketplaces will be in huge trouble when, especially newer generations, have AI agents in their pockets or their phones, and people start using OTAs as just places to window shop. Because why would you pay a premium if the same property can be booked directly and, pay less money? What you can do right now is easily find the direct booking website and make sure it can be trusted, et cetera, et cetera. But a few years down the line, maybe 2 maximum actually, the AI will just be able to find this direct website and it's going to be able to verify that everything is right about that property. So I think in the next couple of years, bookings are going to actually drop, and that will impact any marketplace model. And so they need to focus on something different, something that is still very fragmented, which is the services market. So I believe, not in 12 months time. In 12 months time, I agree with you. They're gonna be talking about RevPAR bookings, etc. But 24 months down the road, I can totally see how services becomes this large chunk of Airbnb's revenue.
I really like it as a point. We talk about it a lot on the pod, right? Like how AI is the biggest challenge to the OTA market that's come along since people started booking online, right? So I like it as a potential theory. I think it holds weight. It's also really interesting because it brings you into a wider conversation about why is Google Gemini not sort of pushing forward with this idea of promoting a direct booking website. And it's because the OTAs are the biggest revenue drivers for ads, right? So they have like booking.com, I think, may even be Google's best customer globally for any product type, right?
It is.
I'm getting nods. Great. There you go. I haven't made that up. So you have this challenge. Which is Google now have the technology in Gemini to push you. I mean, they had it anyway, right? Through meta search, they had it anyway, but now it's even more available. And at the same time, people are starting to use Chat GPT for it. So that in and of itself is really interesting. What does Google do as a company to make sure that it's hitting the consumer where they want to be hit? And it might even be that booking, we've talked about this before, I know, but that booking can be done by your AI agent, so you don't even have to go on the website to visit it. They're doing all the booking and threading the whole thing together and threading your itineraries together for you. So yeah, I think we've looked at this for the last half an hour as a strategic move from Airbnb to try and grow revenue. We haven't talked about it being a defensive move to try and protect their bookings business. But maybe if you look at it in terms of it as a defensive move, it makes more sense because now is the time to act rather than in 12 months when it might be too late, right?
Yeah. Perhaps. I think you bring us to a really good quick point to close us out, Leo, is about AI and kind of the future of it. Boris, you want to give us a quick overview of what's going on with Expedia? Because I actually loved this one. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, I saw this new feature being announced, and it's a really, really cool feature, but nobody's really talking about it. So apparently right now, it's in beta, but in June, they're going to roll it out to everyone. When you're scrolling on your Instagram feed and you're checking out travel reels, you can DM Expedia. You can just share the travel reel with Expedia, and Expedia is going to tell you where this was, and it's going to create a whole itinerary for you, which is bookable. That's pretty amazing because right now, something like 70-80% of people get inspiration for travel on social media, and Instagram being one of the largest social media platforms, it just makes sense for Expedia to plug itself right there in a very, very seamless way. Imagine you're just looking at this reel, daydreaming, you're like, okay, how much is that going to cost me? Can I actually go there? You click share, DM it to the Expedia Instagram account, and then you get an itinerary straight away. That's really, really good. But nobody seems to be talking about it. I don't know why.
I'm going to try it out. I love this. I don't know if you heard about my debacle, Boris, but I actually tried to have ChatGPT organize me a holiday. And it was like, hey, here's the budget, and I want you to find me the properties. And it was like, here you go, and had all the links. And I went to like one or two of the links, and it was like, this property does not exist. And I was like, I'm sorry, did you make these up? And it was like, oh yeah, sorry. Actually, I can't find you links and things. I'm like, you should have just said that. So this actually solves for that problem. And as you said, they're bookable. They're going to have the right dates. I think it's super smart. And I think it's a great way of taking the power of Instagram and of the way that that people are booking travel. I mean, I know I'm often inspired by, gosh, I saw this amazing place. I want to go there. In fact, my summer holidays are basically because I've been bombarded with reels on Instagram for this place for probably 2 years, and so it's been on my bucket list, and I'm finally going to do it. So actually, I might give it a try. I'll report back.
I think it's really perfect for Expedia because they have their tentacles in so many different parts of travel. So it's really, really perfect. Booking.com could probably dabble in that too. Bit of a struggle. Airbnb would struggle with that. So it is really interesting because it kind of, maybe again, that's also an Airbnb's mind. Parting shot from me. If I was Expedia, I'd mess it up as something new and I wouldn't link it to Expedia to try and get the younger generation of people using it. Because Expedia just feels like the 90s and Microsoft. And I don't know, I worry that that's a shrinking pool of people that want to book with them. So I would think about if that probably is something they could do as a kind of disruptor brand within what they're already doing.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. I like that.
Or am I being mean to Expedia? Is that a mean way to finish?
It's good. It's fair. In fact, there's a lot of brands that do this, where, for example, they'll buy a bunch of other domains. They have like a lookalike. It's basically just like a white label of their own site, and ultimately the traffic goes to the same place. Like it's like an iframe of the same site. It just looks different. It's called something different. You just buy up all these domains. There's quite a few OTAs actually who do that. I won't name any names. So yeah, I think it's actually a good idea.
Okay. It's been so lovely, Boris, to have you with us today. Come back soon, my friend.
Anytime. It was a pleasure. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, lovely. And Sarah, my friend, always lovely to see you. We've got Boris, we'll tell you actually, we've got a meetup in Barcelona on June 19th, which is great, in collaboration with Scale and, of course, the good guys at Truvy, whoever they are. So we're doing that. Be with us on the 19th of June if you're in Barcelona. DM us for more information, but there'll be stuff coming online about that soon. Yeah, and look, to you guys at home, if you've enjoyed today's show, please hit like, share, subscribe, and all the usual social places. Until next time, thank you.
Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Logify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.